This is a story of Canada's governance journey, how its Westminster system evolved, and the governance issues it faces today. O Canada, inhabited for millennia by distinctive Indigenous groups, Canada is a federal state formed by two founding nations with two principal legal traditions. It is officially bilingual and multicultural at the federal level. So what is governance? Why does it matter? Why is it especially important today? Well, governance is how society, or groups within it, organize to make decisions. As we unpack this simple statement, three big issues come to the fore. Who has a voice in making decisions? How are decisions made? And who is accountable? To answer these questions and to understand modern governance, we need to step back into the 13th century. The Canadian version of Westminster has deep roots. Until King John, governance was simple. One person made the decisions. No one else had a voice, and King John was certainly not accountable to the people. In 1215, with the Magna Carta, a small group of the English population, the nobles, began to have a voice in state decisions and to hold the king to account. He could no longer levy taxes without their consent. And over the next few centuries, the new representative body, Parliament, expanded to include elected representatives, great landholders and wealthy townsmen, the Commons. Meanwhile, in another part of the world, European explorers were discovering new lands. This early globalization would have a profound impact on old world notions of governance. But more on that later. Back in England, Parliament grew harder for the king to manage. In 1688, James II lost his fight with Parliament and his throne to William of Orange. Parliament would now decide who would reign. And Parliament, triumphant, enacted the Bill of Rights. This limited royal authority further still. Kings were now constitutional monarchs, accountable, albeit to the aristocracy and a small, wealthy upper class. Over the next 200 years, the voice of the people grew. The Prime Minister emerged as the true head of government, and the King's advisors started to resemble the modern cabinet. Now back to the New World. Ideas of governance were shaking up old established notions. In 1776, the idea of no taxation without representation led to a new country. The United States had a democratic form of government based on direct representation. The Canadas followed a different path. They kept their allegiance to the Crown and the Westminster tradition. The influx of United Empire Loyalists further strengthened this. Over the next 100 years, with the rebellions of 1837 and 1838, the Canadas evolved from executive to responsible government. The voice of citizens grew, and governments became accountable to elected legislatures. With Confederation in 1867, Canada adopted its own form of parliamentary democracy under Sir John A. Macdonald and the Fathers of Confederation. These political changes were followed by huge social upheavals as part of the Industrial Revolution. These included the expansion of urban society and a growing educated middle class. As the economy grew and society evolved, government was asked to do more. In Germany, Bismarck launched the modern welfare state in the 1880s. Workers got a say in how programs operated. Their voice was growing. As the nature of governance was changing, so was the nature of government. Max Weber's ideas led to the professional bureaucracy. Nepotism and the spoils system were replaced by an impartial, merit-based public service. By the end of the 19th century, the idea of one person, one vote was well established, and the calls for universal suffrage were growing. These trends, more inclusive decision-making, louder citizen voice, universal suffrage, and increasing accountability to the governed, continued through the first half of the 20th century. Government was accountable to Parliament, and Parliament was supreme. In Canada, the sense of nationhood took hold and grew. The years following the Second World War saw massive industrialization and high economic growth. Citizens became better educated and enjoyed improved living standards. Increased immigration increased our diversity. The government's role in the economy grew. A growing technocratic bureaucracy supported more social and economic programs. In 1967, Canada celebrated its centennial. Governance matured with the country. Executive federalism saw power shifting from Parliament to the executive branch. At the same time, citizens were becoming more involved with and demanding of government. In 1982, after a decade of discussions, Canada patriated the Constitution. The Charter of Rights and Freedoms, entrenched into that document, ensured a more direct role for the courts. Today, a broad range of factors shapes our current governance environment. Income growth, educational attainment, growing aspirations, technology and the information revolution, as well as globalization and harsh fiscal realities. Citizens with more knowledge, education, and affluence want faster and more transparent accountability from their governments, and are showing less deference to governments that speak or decide for them. With social and economic complexity, the very shape of government has changed. New functions have brought new institutional arrangements, a host of agencies, boards, commissions, and corporations designed to advise, regulate, adjudicate, and deliver services. Their relationships with government and the governed are multifaceted and complex. This is the world of distributed governance. And this is not an easy environment to navigate. Expertise is needed to guide decision makers through ongoing change, to find the best ways of delivering services to and achieving outcomes for citizens. And so it all comes back to, what is governance? Why does it matter? Why is it important today? Governments are the most complex of organizations, dealing with the most complex of issues. And good governance leads to good leadership, good decisions, and better outcomes. We are now at a critical juncture. Much of what we have built may not suit the times or help us resolve today's challenges. Indigenous peoples. In health, education, and economic development, the gap between them and other Canadians needs to be closed. Governance agendas on authority and jurisdiction, as well as the creation of institutions and governance structures to support self-government, are needed if change is to happen. Cities. Governance structures put in place over 100 years ago no longer work as well as they should. Over 80% of Canadians now live in urban areas. Governance challenges include effective representation of diverse population, aging citizens, integrating transportation networks, and preparing for the effects of climate change. And everything is faster. New disruptive technologies are both driving and enabling change in everything from policy making to service delivery to citizen activism. As expectations grow, the relationship between government and citizens is changing. Governance challenges include renewing our notions of privacy, of openness and control of government data, and how to incorporate the direct involvement of citizens between elections while responding to the newly empowered activist citizens. In short, the rigid government control of data, decisions, and the social agenda is just no longer tenable. Governments at all levels, ministers, departments, agencies, boards, commissions, and crown corporations, they all know they must adapt to this new set of demands. They need to identify, understand, and respond to these new governance challenges if they are to remain relevant. Governance in Canada continues to evolve. For one thing, the role of provinces has grown. This is due to demands for devolution led by Quebec and a changing economy as natural resource revenue grew in the West and manufacturing shrank in central Canada. Also, demands by Indigenous groups for a greater role in decision-making has led to new forms of governance. Stay tuned. The Institute on Governance is a global practitioner in the field of governance. It offers a unique contribution to the public governance dialogue through leading expertise. It provides leading research and thinking on emerging governance trends, as well as options for meeting them. It incorporates these findings directly into its classrooms and advisory work. The Institute on Governance can help governments and organizations respond effectively to this changing world. It can ensure they understand the importance of governance in good decision-making, its benefits, and the cost of its absence. It can bring together the issues and analyze the pressures they face today. It can train its leaders for the public service of tomorrow. It can offer solutions for accomplishing their goals, and it can help them implement the decisions they make.